Backpackers in Paradise is one of the world's most luxurious destinations, finally becoming more affordable. Coming up on this week's programme, we ask what effect the arrival of more backpackers could have on the Maldives. We try out a new way to play polo in London.
Oh, brilliant. You're natural. That's great.
We travel to Paris to explore the resurgence of absinthe, a spirit that was banned there for most of the 20th century. And
later on the travel show, how to avoid the passport queues when you arrive at US airports.
hi there and welcome to the programme, coming to you this week from the Maldives. Now, I've got to admit, out of all the destinations I've been to, this one certainly lives up to its picture-perfect image, with its white sandy beaches and aqua blue waters. But holidaying here definitely isn't cheap. That's because traditionally most of the hotels here have been luxury 5-star island resorts, like this one. The overwater villa is possibly the most iconic image that people will associate with the Maldives. And at over $1,000 a night, it's not for everyone's budget. But now, if you're willing to visit some of the 200 locally inhabited islands, a holiday in one of the world's most expensive destinations could well be considered affordable. So this is what you get in Mali for $75 a night. A clean room with a double bed, bathroom with what looks like a hot shower. It's not the best view in the world, and I think this is certainly the world's smallest balcony. But this could be a great place to base yourself if you're on a budget and want to explore the rest of the Maldives. The number of guest houses and small family-run hotels here has tripled in the last 5 years. Sonhura Palace is one of Mali's newest guest houses. It's got 4 rooms at around $50 a night, and business is doing so well, there are plans to expand.
Backpackers have many options, like now some of the resorts, they are offering day trips. So many tourists, they come here, they just stay here night, they just travel to a nearby resort, they enjoy and come back and they sleep here. So it's like if they're staying in a resort, they would have to spend at least $600 per night, but here they spend just around $50 and they have to spend another $100 for the day trip.
Well, let's face it, Mali isn't the most picturesque capital city. It's more like a soulless commercial centre. And it's certainly a far cry from the glossy images that you see advertising the Maldives on the internet. It seems like everyone comes here on these international flights and they're shipped out to the outer islands. Here in the capital, I've been here a day and I've maybe seen 3 tourists at most. There seems to be a huge divide between tourists and locals. And maybe that's the way some people here like it. Well, that's certainly been the policy in the past, to keep tourists away from the local Muslim population. The Islamic Republic applies different laws for tourists and locals. Overseas visitors are free to drink alcohol on most islands, eat pork, and unmarried couples can share the same room. Strict Islamic laws forbid locals from doing the same. So now, with a steady increase of budget accommodation popping up on the dry island of Mali, coupled with at least 3 low-cost airlines already touching down here, surely it's a cultural clash waiting to happen between backpackers and conservative residents. The government is adamant that there won't be any friction.
There are different views, but the economic prosperity and economic weight has taken this business forward, and I think it's taken as a business, and it is the hospitality where Maldivians has been very hospitable for a very long time. And as you know, as an island nation, we have reached to a level where we are positioned as the #1 island destination in the world. So the culture is adapting to that.
So you could say money talks, but at least guest house tourism will now allow ordinary Maldivians a piece of the tourism pie. Last year, 1 million tourists visited the Maldives, and there are plans to increase this to 5 million in the coming years.
The tourism product here will have to change, I suppose, if it wants to become more inclusive and if it wants to engage the wider community.
How will it have to change?
Resorts to grow maybe 2 or 3 a year, and the price to create a bed, one bed for one tourist in a resort is, the quotes as high as maybe $300,000, and it's $10,000 at the estimate for in a guest house.
While the government doesn't want to be seen as a cheap destination, it's obvious if the numbers continue to swell, then more affordable hotels will have to be built. That's great news for budget travellers into sun, sand and surf, so long as you're mindful of the culture. If you're going to base yourself here in Mali, it's at least a more affordable option, even if this artificial beach isn't quite up to the standard of some of the other luxury islands here. If you're thinking of booking a holiday to the Maldives, here are some other things that you should know. Shout it out, put up your hands high. High season here is between December to April. Prices tend to come down between May and November, but expect more rain and higher humidity if you book then, although the sun shines almost every day of the year here. If you are travelling independently, intra-island air taxis can be expensive, so use the ferry network instead. But don't forget, distances can be long, so those trips will eat into your beach time here. Remember that tourists are strictly forbidden from importing duty-free alcohol into the Maldives, so you can only buy beer, wine and spirits on expensive island resorts. Diving is good year-round, although a basic rule is that you'll get the best reef diving on the western side of any atolls between May and November, and the eastern side during the rest of the year. And my top tip, if you're into diving like me, is to head to Batala Marga Kantilla, considered one of the top dive sites here in the Maldives. There you'll see reef fish, sharks, mantas and eagle rays. Let's start this week's travel update with Egypt, where the government says it's taking measures to protect foreign visitors after a suicide attack in Taba. 3 South Korean tourists and their Egyptian driver were killed, and another 13 tourists were wounded following an explosion as their bus was making its way to the Israeli border. India says it's making travel easier by rolling out a visa on arrival scheme for people from 180 different countries. The government says that from October this year, the majority of tourists will be able to pick up a 30-day visa when they arrive, rather than having to fill out a lengthy application form weeks before they travel. And finally, it might challenge the traditional view of a paradise island, but Lewis and Harris off the coast of Scotland has been named as the best island in Europe by travel website TripAdvisor. The tiny island, which is home to the world-famous Harris Tweed, beat Thailand and Madagascar to be included in the top 5 in the world.
I set out to find the truth about the spirit that caused so much trouble in Europe at the start of the 20th century. Our first stop was the Combier distillery in the town of Semur.
This place is amazing. It looks like the home of a mad scientist or something. When's this from?
Well, it's since 1834, so it's almost 200 years old.
Wow.
The real absinthe, authentic absinthe, are made from two basic ingredients, which are ground wormwood.
Wormwood, said to be a plant that grew in the Garden of Eden. It was used for a host of medicinal purposes and believed to ward off evil, but most people know it falsely for its mythical hallucinogenic properties.
You can drink today a real absinthe with the same taste they were having in the 19th century, for sure.
In the same amount of wormwood, the same everything?
Yes, we
Okay.
didn't change the recipe.
At the height of its popularity, Parisians were drinking roughly 6 times more absinthe than wine. And the conspiracy goes that the wine industry used its power to sensationalize a murder and spark the beginning of the end of absinthe.
Today, nowadays, we can prove it is not true. The TN level is very low, although we respected the same recipe.
But the levels of thujone, a chemical in wormwood, were always too low to cause hallucinations. So France repealed the 1915 absinthe prohibition starting in 1988. I hit the road for the final 300-kilometer stretch to Paris, curious to find out whether absinthe had made its triumphant return. During our search, I stumbled across Vert d'Absinthe, the only shop in Paris that exclusively sells absinthe and its paraphernalia.
Bonjour. Even in Paris, a lot of people come in the shop and ask us, but I thought it was illegal. How you can be there? You don't have the right to sell absinthe. Should I call the police?
Really?
Yeah, sometimes people don't understand why the shop exists.
At Luc's suggestion, we headed to the neighborhood of Bastille, where most of Paris's absinthe bars are located.
Enjoy your drinks.
Merci beaucoup.
This process and all about the absinthe, yes, it's a French tradition for me.
First, fill the fountain with ice-cold water. Next, pour 2 centiliters of anise-flavored absinthe, which ranges from clear to earthy green. Finally, open the tap to drip the water very slowly over the sugar cube and into the absinthe.
They had this tradition in their families, and sometimes between friends, like, oh, let's do like our grandfathers.
It was amazing to see how misunderstood the spirit still is. Even in the country where absinthe is inextricably linked with history and art, most people drinking it did so out of nostalgia. At the end of the night, no magical creatures rose from my spoon, but watching the fountain drip throughout the night was an aesthetically beautiful, extremely social ritual, and it was easy to see why Parisians fell in love with absinthe more than a century ago. With life moving so fast these days, I hope they can find the time to sit down and discover that love again.
Stay with us because still to come on the programme, we catch up with our global guru Simon Calder. And Henry learns to play polo East London style.
Oh! Welcome to the slice of the show that tries to make your travelling life easier. I'm Simon Calder and I'm your global guru, here to answer all your questions and concerns. Let's start with Christine Parry, who asks,
I believe there can be a long wait to get through passport control in New York. Can you advise me of any ways to avoid this?
Because airlines can allow as little as 60 minutes for transfers at gateway airports, that means potentially missed connections. But if you choose a flight that arrives either early or late, the waiting times are much shorter. The first departure from London Heathrow touches down in New York at around 11 in the morning and the last after 10 at night. Even smarter, fly via Ireland, where many US-bound flights allow you to pre-clear border formalities. US customs and immigration procedures are carried out at Dublin or Shannon Airport ahead of your transatlantic flight. So when you arrive in America, you're treated as a domestic passenger and just walk straight out. Arno Sabulka has been in touch from Johannesburg in South Africa about flights that he booked with a foreign airline to Munich for him and his wife. He was happy with the fare, which he paid in South African rand on his credit card. But the following day, his card was billed for 103 rand for an international currency conversion fee. He tells the travel show,
"It was not an international transaction. The price was quoted and paid in South African rand. The airline accepted the deal and delivered the ticket in South Africa, and that must be the end of it."
Oh no, I agree, it's infuriating. I've just booked some flights from Britain to Spain with a Spanish airline and I was charged a €20 transaction fee. In your case, the card issuer said that the flight booking was registered as a foreign purchase and therefore a currency conversion fee must apply. While your argument is impressively robust, I honestly can't suggest that you pursue this case for the sake of a charge of less than $10. Graham Elam is heading for Havana and simply wants to know,
what's the best way of taking money to Cuba?
Graham, elsewhere in the Caribbean the US dollar is king, but in Cuba anyone with the American currency will find it difficult and costly to change. There's a 10% tax on transactions involving the dollar. In its place, the euro, the Canadian dollar, the Mexican peso and the pound sterling are readily acceptable. I usually take euros in low denominations, nothing bigger than a 20, plus a credit card in case of misfortune or miscalculation. Change small amounts as you go along. Most travellers stick to Cuba's very own hard currency, the convertible peso, which is used for tourist transactions, but it's also worth getting some ordinary pesos or moneda nacional for use on the street. Finally, Samantha Watkins has booked a holiday in Lanzarote in Spain's Canary Islands, but she's concerned about when her British passport runs out.
Can I travel to Lanzarote if my passport expires in 5 months?
Samantha, it's a good question to ask because many countries, including popular destinations such as Turkey and Egypt, specify that passports must have a minimum of 6 months to run. But because Lanzarote is part of the European Union and you have an EU passport, you can confidently travel up to the day the document expires. Well, that's all for now, but if you've got a travel question, I'm here to help. Just email the travel show at bbc.com or get in touch on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll do my very best to find you an answer. From me, Simon Calder, bye for now and see you next time.
Let's skip to the good bit.
Now, London is well known for being home to some of the most iconic sporting venues in the world, from Wimbledon and Wembley to the Olympic Stadium. But just down the road from that venue, you can learn to play a new sport that will test your powers of strength, stamina and balance. We sent Henry along to give it a go.
When you think of polo, you probably think of rich people, horses and royals. But I've come to an outdoor court in the middle of London to find out how you can play polo on a much smaller budget.
Bike polo is a game played by 3 players on either team, and you're looking to put the ball in the net. First to 5 wins. If you put your foot on the ground, you're out of play and you're asked to tap out.
You make it sound a lot simpler than it actually looks. I'm sure there's more to it. Are there any sort of skills that I need to hone or to fine-tune?
Not really. If you can ride a bike, you can play this game. So what we'll do is we'll get you on court, get a mount in one hand, get the ball in front of you, get to tap it around, get a feel for it, and then we'll play in a game. The easiest way to learn this game is to just get on the bike and have a go.
Okay. Oh, wobbly. There's a lot of balance needed for this, Ryan. You didn't tell me about that.
So you just keep your eye on the ball, take your time. Oh, brilliant. You're natural. That's great.
Over the head. I'm telling you, this is extremely difficult. I mean, one thing that you've got to be careful of is your balance, obviously. You've only got one brake, so whilst you're wielding the mallet, you got to worry about crashing into people, just like I nearly did there. Foot down, got to go to the wall, touch the fence.
I just turned up one day with a shopper bike with a big basket on it, and someone lent me a mallet, and then I started playing and I fell off my bike a lot of times.
And at first I would just hang out and basically sit around in the sun and just watch them play, and then at some point I just started playing myself.
I found out about bike polo while I was looking for a cycling group, but instead I ended up cycling in a basketball court with these guys.
It's all about positioning, and I think my greatest tactic will be sort of to hang around the front here and wait for the ball to come to me. You've got to give it a go. Anybody can try it, but if I want to be as good as these guys, I better get back to it. Ooh. Here we go.
Well, that's it from this week's programme. Join us next week when we'll be in northern France.
As the world prepares to mark the centenary of the start of the First World War, Krista Larwood will be asking if it's now okay for places like these to be called tourist attractions rather than sites of remembrance.
If you fancy something with a poppy on it, you're kind of spoilt for choice. Mouse pad, tea towel.
Join us next week for that.
Don't forget, we're all over Facebook and Twitter too. But from all of us here in the Maldives, it's goodbye and see you next time.